Every fall, fashion takes a turn, sometimes subtle, sometimes seismic, and 2025 is one of those years where the shift is impossible to ignore. This season is not about excess or loud statements that try too hard. It's about an aura. It's about looking like you have nothing to prove, yet everything about you commands attention. What's dominating 2025 is refinement. Fashion right now is about being admired for how you carry yourself, not for what you reveal. The women setting the tone this fall aren't dressing to show off. They're dressing to be respected, to be desired for their mystery, and to be remembered long after they leave the room. That's why quiet, pared-back elegance is overpowering trends that feel cheap, overdone, or desperate for validation. The biggest fashion movements of this fall are built on psychology. People are tired of fads. They don't want to buy into something that screams 2023 TikTok micro-trend and looks dated in a month. They want longevity. They want to invest in pieces that make them feel elevated, powerful, and timeless. It's no coincidence that the brands growing the fastest right now, like The Row, Kaiti, and others with minimalist DNA, are the ones mastering the art of less but better. 2025's fall fashion is not about being trendy for the sake of it. It's about building an identity. When you walk into a room, people should notice not just what you're wearing, but the energy you project. Composed, unshaken, admired. Every detail this season points toward fashion that enhances who you are, rather than replacing you with a gimmick. And that's what makes these trends impossible to ignore. They aren't trends in the disposable sense. They're signals of where culture is moving. Away from overexposure, toward discretion. Away from maximalism that feels chaotic, toward minimalism that feels magnetic. This fall is about dressing in a way that demands admiration without asking for it. And if you want to keep decoding what all of this means for the future of fashion, make sure you're following us on Instagram at GTWJMag, because this is only the beginning. The deeper you look, the more you realize fall 2025 isn't just about what's in style, it's about what's respected. Fall 2025 is exposing a truth that the fashion industry has been dancing around for years. Most of what gets pushed out as a trend is nothing but noise. People are waking up to the fact that fast fads are designed to make you spend, not to make you feel powerful or respected. And that's why this season feels so different. There's a collective rejection of what looks cheap, what feels juvenile, and what screams trying too hard. The psychology behind this shift is fascinating. Fashion has always been a language of belonging, but right now, it's less about screaming your place in the crowd and more about rising above it. People don't want their clothes to make them look like they follow trends. They want their clothes to make them look like they set the tone. Effortless, admired, untouchable. This is why timeless aesthetics are dominating. The cultural obsession with quiet confidence, being respected without ever explaining yourself, is spilling into fashion. We're in an era where pulling back is the ultimate flex. The ones who look the most magnetic this fall aren't those chasing bold, desperate statements, but those who master subtlety, discretion, and precision. What's dated in 2025 is anything that feels like a gimmick. Overly flashy logos, novelty-driven pieces, and micro-trends designed to go viral but not last. All of that reads insecure now. Instead, what dominates are silhouettes, textures and details that are subtle but commanding. The kind of fashion that doesn't expire in 3 months because it was never meant to be disposable. At its core, this fall is about clothing as armor, not in a heavy literal way, but as a psychological shield. People are using fashion to protect their sense of self-respect, to communicate standards without saying a word. When you wear something refined, minimal, and intentional, you're not just dressing your body, you're telling the world that you value yourself enough not to be defined by fleeting aesthetics. And that's why these trends are unstoppable. They're not just about fabric and cut. They're about culture, psychology, and where we are as a society. 2025 is the year where fashion's power comes not from exaggeration, but from restraint. Follow GTWJ Mag on Instagram to keep seeing what's really happening beneath the surface of fashion. Because if you only look at the clothes, you'll miss the real story. And this fall, the real story is bigger than style. it's about what's respected. The dominance of these fall 2025 trends isn't just about aesthetics, it's about the values people are gravitating toward. For the first time in years, trends aren't being set purely by runway shock value or social media virality, they're being shaped by a craving for respect. Fashion is moving away from gimmicks and leaning into legacy. People don't want to look like they were styled by an algorithm. They want to look like they made intentional choices that reflect depth, intelligence, and confidence. This is also why refinement and restraint have become the new markers of power. When everything in society feels loud, overexposed, and constantly competing for attention, the quiet confidence of a well-composed look feels revolutionary. The message is clear. I don't need to shout to be seen. That's the core of this season's psychology. Dressing not to prove, but to affirm. And this is where the real shift is happening. Trends that dominate now are the ones that give you longevity and presence, not fleeting dopamine. Pieces that can be worn differently across time, that elevate rather than distract. Trends that make you look like you know who you are, not like you're trying to keep up. Anything that feels temporary, overly experimental, or designed to scream novelty is already outdated the second it leaves the store. Fall 2025 is separating the timeless from the disposable with brutal clarity, and the people who embrace that difference will stand out for years, not weeks. This is the GTWJ perspective. Fashion isn't just what you wear, it's what it says about you when you walk into a room. Follow GTWJ Mag on Instagram if you want to see the deeper story behind what's really shaping style right now. Because the true power of fashion this fall isn't about chasing, it's about leading. What's becoming undeniable is that fall 2025 isn't about adding more noise to your wardrobe, it's about stripping away everything unnecessary until what remains is undeniably you. The dominating fashion message this season is about presence, not decoration. Trends are finally serving as tools rather than costumes, meant to frame and highlight your individuality, not drown it out. This is why the strongest looks of this fall are rooted in clarity. People are tired of fashion being treated as a gimmick or a performance. There's no appetite anymore for clothing that feels disposable, cartoonish, or reliant on shock value. Instead, what dominates now is intention. The cuts, the textures, the layering, the way pieces interact, these are no longer just aesthetic choices, they are statements of identity. The most powerful trend is the one that makes you instantly legible as someone who knows who they are. Fall 2025 also reintroduces respect into the equation. Respect for craftsmanship, respect for subtlety, respect for the quiet art of dressing in a way that leaves space for imagination. The most admired looks are no longer those that bear everything, but those that carry an aura of mystery. Clothes that don't just show, but suggest. And that psychological power is what makes these trends so magnetic. You're not admired for what you give away instantly, but for the world you imply without spelling it out. So when we talk about trends dominating this season, we're not talking about fleeting fads. We're talking about a cultural reset that puts refinement, depth, and intelligence back at the center of style. This is the season where the difference between being fashionable and being truly stylish couldn't be clearer. And if you want to stay ahead of this shift, make sure you're following GTWJ Mag on Instagram, where we break down the psychology and the story behind what's really shaping fashion in 2025. Because these aren't just trends, they're signposts for where culture itself is heading. Fall 2025 is also teaching us something powerful, that fashion has returned to hierarchy, not in the sense of class, but in the sense of energy. The people who stand out this season are the ones who understand that style is a language of authority, not of noise. You can immediately feel the difference between someone who's grasping at trends versus someone who is quietly directing the room. The dominant energy this fall is one of refusal. Refusing to look messy, refusing to look overexposed, refusing to follow fads that will feel embarrassing in 6 months. The industry is shifting away from clothes as disposable performance and back toward clothes as a reflection of inner discipline. It's the revival of intention, where the person wearing the clothes looks untouchable because they clearly know themselves, not because they're broadcasting for applause. This is why the fall trends aren't about one it, but about rejecting the chaos that fashion has been drowning in. People are tired of being told that vulgarity is power or that looking cheap is ironic chic. Fall 2025 is dominated by the return of respect. Respect for quality, respect for form, respect for the mystery of not showing everything. And when you look deeper, this isn't just about clothes, it's cultural. The collective psyche is demanding stability, order, and quiet strength in a time where everything feels unstable. That's why these trends resonate so strongly. They are not only wearable, but psychological armor. If you want to keep unraveling these layers and see where fashion is really headed, not just what's trending today, but what it means for the future, follow GTWJ Mag on Instagram. Because fashion without truth is just fabric. But when we break it down honestly, it becomes culture.